Hello there, my name is Teleola and this is Career Talks with me. So, the purpose of this is to showcase Nigerian trained lawyers who are now in the diaspora doing amazing things. So, they'll be sharing their personal experiences, and this would help those who are looking to tow a similar path as them. This promises to be value packed. Make sure you stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back again. So, today I have a special guest on my channel. All my guests are special, of course. So, she's a lawyer who is Nigerian qualified and she transitioned to in-house, right? She's now an in-house legal counsel in the UK. She's my husband's friend's wife. So, yeah, let me just allow you introduce yourself to us.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Maranatha. Like she said, I'm a Nigerian qualified lawyer. Do I need to go into my background?
It's
Okay.
up to you.
Yeah, so I worked for a few years at a law firm in Nigeria before making the move here. And then I worked in the corporate governance roles before getting to my current role, which is legal counsel at a construction company.
Very nice, brief, and yeah, great. Let's get into the meat of the issue.
Okay.
So, why did you decide to transition from a legal career in Nigeria and working as a lawyer in a law firm? So you were in private practice, and then you now decided to transition into working, or what people would say, working in-house. So what were the motivations behind that move?
Honestly, I'd always just wanted to work in house, kind of. So private practice it's really interesting, but as you would know, it can be a lot of pressure. It can be just a lot. And I wanted to kind of get to a point in my career where I was working within a company. So not just, you advise on specific deals and then you go away and you advise someone else. I wanted to like actually be in a company and be part of the business. And I think that had always been my goal, which is why I thought, corporate governance, which is what I did my master's in. I thought that would be like a good way to kind of get closer to the business side of things, just because in-house you're doing legal advice, but you're also part of the company in a way that external counsel really can't be, or would find it difficult to be. And I think that's what I wanted. So it was me thinking, yeah, let's get the degree to make that happen. And, you know.
Okay, that was excellent. So how did you make that move? So can you share a few steps that you took to make that move?
Yeah, it was not it was not a straightforward journey. I worked, like I said, I worked at a law firm, and part of what we did was company secretarial work. And my understanding of it then was sometimes if you're in house, you do a bit of both company secretarial and legal. So I was like, you know what, if you want to make that move, do a bit of corporate governance to understand how companies work, and especially because I was also transitioning to work in the UK. So I thought if you want to work in house abroad, then maybe do something that gives you a bit of exposure, not just to law generally, but like their company law, how their companies are generally regulated, that sort of thing. So I was like, start with a corporate governance LLM. And then I worked in those sorts of roles for a minute. I think at some point I had toyed with the idea of just becoming a governance professional. So I may be working in law again now, but I kind of took a bit of a detour into corporate governance, company secretarial roles. I did a bit of that, and then I decided, you know what, I'm ready to go back to where I started, which is law, but with a bit of, at least I hope, a bit of a unique experience now. Um, you know what? Really be open minded. Just because the roles you might get may not look exactly like what you want initially. So your first job, if you want to take the like the degree, if you want to do a postgraduate degree, your first job after that may not be the exact job you want. But I think what I did was, so my first job, I was a governance officer. And so what I did was I sat with committees in the business, organized minutes, followed up on, like, I was doing a lot of just governance support work. That wasn't what I wanted to do eventually, but it was my foot in the door. And so having that open-mindedness to understand that if you want to work as maybe legal counsel, your first job may not be legal counsel exactly. Be open to contract roles. So it might not be, first time, full-time employment, everything is set. It may be someone needs cover for 3 months. It may be a job that's maybe looks a bit more junior to what you're used to, but offers the experience you're looking for. So my advice would just be have an open mind. Sometimes it works out that the first job you land is exactly what you want, but sometimes you kind of use other jobs to build up the experience to get where you want to go. And you can't discount the experience that you get from that. And you can't, if you try to be too rigid, it might take longer, and you might just get upset that things aren't working out the way you want. But really, there are a number of routes that you can take. For example, the job that isn't quite what you had in mind initially, and you use that, you build up experience, and don't be afraid to move. I left my first job after 3 months, and I just kept doing things like that, and it's a bit awkward at first, but if you know what it is that you want to do, just keep focused on that. Get your first job. While you're in there, look for what's out there, and then you will land where you want to go eventually.
Yeah, it's important to be focused and to be open-minded as well.
Yeah.
But some people just feel they lack motivation when they keep applying for roles so maybe they applied for like legal counsel roles, and they feel like they're even overqualified because they have a master's or a PhD, but they're just not getting it. But sometimes experience, what I've learned in the UK is that they value experience over all your degrees. But in Nigeria, it's like, you have PhD, you have first class, you have double, triple first class. So all the companies will be chasing you. But hey, you come here and they're like, you have your first class, but someone else had a 2-2 and they have 4 years experience. Trust me, they would take the guy with the 2-2 over you with your first class and no experience. So it's just always good to keep an open mind. Thank you for that.
And not be too discouraged.
Yeah, and don't be discouraged. Don't feel demotivated. Don't feel like you can't do it. Because sometimes, you might just have to swallow your pride and go for a role that you feel is beneath you, in quotes, and you'll get there eventually. So thank you for that. So some people think that you need to be English. Some people think that. I'm talking too fast. Some people think that you need or you must be English qualified to land a role as a legal counsel in a UK company. Because if you check job ads and on job boards, you would see that is an essential requirement. So can I ask how you were able to do that? Because I know that you're currently taking your SQE exams to be English qualified.
Yep.
Yeah, so how did you do that? How were you able to do that without being English qualified?
So even though you may not you might apply for some jobs that you think are beneath you, you can also apply for jobs that you think are also above you, in a sense, quote unquote. So just because it says something on the requirements doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. So for me, that's always been it. If I meet, if there are 5 requirements and I've got 3 out of 5, and those are 3 important ones, I will certainly send my CV. And the truth is that a lot of people who practice law here are not UK qualified. My boss is qualified, is foreign qualified as well. If you can show that you have relevant experience, in a lot of cases, you could actually get those legal counsel jobs. Also, some jobs, they say UK qualified or other common law jurisdiction. So you just want to sell it, because the fact that you're not qualified here, you still know law, and it's not that different. So I would just say, it's not always as hard and fast a rule as it may appear. So just because they're looking for UK qualified doesn't actually mean that they won't qualify. They wouldn't consider people qualified in other jurisdictions. Sometimes there is, I think, a bit of preferential treatment for certain jurisdictions, but honestly, if you throw your hat in the ring, you can still get something. So I think that was kind of what happened in my case.
So you didn't let that limit you, and you're here today. Yeah. So still on the SQE exams. So how long? So if there was someone who was interested in taking the exams, what advice would you give them in terms of how to prepare, the length of time it will take you to prepare, like how many months will it take you to prepare for the exams? Are they difficult? Because I know Nigerian law school, we thought it was like the end of the world. I think that was the most depressing 1 year of my life. But yeah, just from your experience, how is it, just in case someone out there is trying to take the SQE exams?
I'm not gonna lie, it's hard. But what I will say is, if you find a period of time where maybe you're not working full time, that's a great time to prepare for the SQE. It's so much, I think law school, difficult as it was, what helped us was that was one long depressing year where we were doing nothing else. The thing about course qualifying here is that many times you're doing that with a full-time job, and it is exhausting. So I would say, even if you consider yourself to, you have excellent grades and you're really smart, I would say start preparing 6 months ahead of the exam, at least. Like, you can actually take more than that, but realistically, you might not. If you decide to take a year, you might not be studying the whole year. Even in law school, I don't know. I mean, maybe there were people who were more serious than me, but I didn't fully start. So I didn't get into proper exam prep mode until a few months in.
Like externship. For me.
I mean, I can say this now because I actually passed and I did all right in law school, but it was the externship period that I became very, very serious. So
no shame.
No, I mean, if I had failed, then I wouldn't be proud to say that. I'd be like, yeah, that's why I didn't do well. But I think, for the SQE, even a realistic time would be 6 months to start. When I say 6 months to start, I mean, like, you actually have a timetable. You're actually following through. Otherwise, the closer it gets, because it's a lot of material to get through. And I think a key difference, because it's multiple choice, but they call it best answer. So, and they examine you on very minute details. So I think with law school, because it was a written exam, you kind of had a bit of freedom to expand on points and things like that. The SQE will examine you on very small, and it's 180 questions in total for FLK 1, 180 questions in total for FLK 2. And this is spanning all the different topics. So it's not really possible to not study a particular point, because out of 180 questions, nearly everything will come out. So it's kind of needing to know everything about everything, and that is actually a lot. So yeah, you need to dedicate time to it, and especially if you're working full time. If I say 6 months, what that means is that you will not always have time to do things on weekends. After work, you have to make time for it. It's just, it's very intense. But yeah, I mean, it's doable, definitely. And I do know of people who, with other responsibilities, have been able to, to get that done. It's just, don't underestimate it.
Yeah, because at least in Nigerian law school, I think we had options.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You had some compulsory questions.
And
Here,
then we had
you do everything.
So yeah, so it's more intense.
Yeah.
It's more intense. Okay, so that takes me on to the next question. So reflecting on your career transition journey, is there anything that you feel that you might have done differently?
Different? Do you know what? Not really. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just focused on looking for in-house legal roles instead of taking the corporate governance detour, but it's still something that's kind of, I think, comes in handy in a way. And just based on the kind of career that I would want in the future, I think it's still something that would be useful. I don't think, maybe there was a job I stayed too long at, but other than that, I don't think I would do anything dramatically different. Maybe I would trust myself more. Maybe I would have applied for more jobs that I talked myself out of applying for, just on the basis of thinking I didn't have the skills or experience needed. Because I think one thing I've figured out is that everyone is still, figuring things out. Everyone is still learning. No one is at a job because they know all the things.
Absolutely.
So probably if I were to do anything differently, it would probably have more to do with confidence and just going for things.
Yeah, because like a recruiter once told me that when people put out job ads, and out of like 5 qualities, if you have 3, or out of 10, if you meet 7, then it's fine.
Yeah. And I think the thing is that with jobs, a lot of it, they sometimes help with training and things like that.
Yes.
Most times you would be reporting to someone. You wouldn't be reporting to that person if there was nothing they could teach you.
Exactly.
So it's not as deep as it's very unlikely to happen. And this is different from saying that you can speak French when you can't, So it may be that, you've worked on something, but you haven't developed, a certain level of expertise. I think in my case, there was a particular form of contract that they were like, oh, are you familiar with this? And at the interview, I was like, I have seen this form of contract, Was I very familiar with it? No, I'm still, improving my skills with it. But I still got in because I had other skills that were useful. So if you wait till you satisfy all the requirements, you're unlikely to you're unlikely to get much done.
Absolutely.
Everyone is still learning. Even your boss is still learning.
True.
So, I mean, we've now found out that sometimes your doctor will Google your symptoms. It's not because they don't know what they did in medical school. At least we hope that's not the case. But no one can possibly know absolutely everything about everything. And so I think confidence is just, it's so important.
Yeah, be confident in yourself.
Yeah.
And don't talk yourself out of any application because you think
did
that you don't satisfy all the requirements.
I think I did that a few times. So if anything, maybe that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So were there any particular challenges that you faced during your career transition?
You know what? Yeah. For this, I think it was realizing that sometimes, and this is not in all cases, sometimes people don't really rate Nigerian work experience as much as I think they should. So it's kind of showing that, I've worked here for nearly 4 years, or I worked in Nigeria for nearly 4 years, and getting this response that's kind of like, yeah, but you don't have the experience. I'm like, which other experience? Nothing you're doing. Like, it's, and then it's even more interesting because, you know, the legal system is not that different. It's modeled after theirs for reasons, colonialism. And then they're now like, you know, really keen for you to have UK experience that you don't have. And it's not as if there's something in the water here that makes the experience particular. It's just, in some cases, it's a bit of a bias. So kind of overcoming that to prove to people that your experience is just as valuable, you know. So I think that was, it can be quite challenging, and it can, if you let it can get you down a bit, just because of when you think of how much work that you put in, and then someone is sitting across from you and kind of looking down at that. It's like, how is this happening? So that, it was a lot to deal with, I think, at the initial stage. But the good thing is that once you start working here, to show you that it was really more of a bias, once you get your first work experience here, it's kind of easier to get another job after that, because now they're like, oh, UK people also trust you to do the work, so maybe you know things. So
so they actually rate you.
Yeah,
not that bad after all. Yeah, because you can have like 6 years of work experience in Nigeria, and then they would
and then you're basically starting all over.
Yeah, they would employ you as an associate or even a trainee, because they just don't rate us.
Exactly. It's ridiculous, because when we actually get in there, we're doing the work and we're doing so well, and it's not like, oh wow, you're doing so well. I'm like, obviously.
Wow, so you're not dumb. It's like, oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, so are there any culture shocks that you experienced? You know, given the fact that you've worked in Nigeria, you said you worked for almost 4 years, and now you've been in the UK for a couple of years now. So, comparing both experiences, are there any culture shocks or, things that you would like to highlight?
Honestly, culture shock is alcohol. They drink a lot, and they're very open about that, and I find that strange. And it's, it hadn't occurred to me that talking to my boss about going out and getting drunk was a thing but it's quite normal here. So I think that was the thing that kind of took me by surprise a little bit. Also kind of how indirect they tend to be. I think with a Nigerian employer, it's very easy to tell when they're annoyed with you, and when, you know, you need to either like tighten your seatbelt or honestly start packing your bags to leave. But here there's so many cues that I think you're expected to pick up on. That's how, I don't know how you're supposed to, but the culture is a bit, I don't know if it's a function of the extreme politeness, but it's not, they're just not as in your face. So you're trying to get things done, but you're not quite sure if you're coming across the way you want to. You're not quite sure how people are really feeling, because everyone is smiling. And so you're not quite sure, you know, you're not quite sure how to navigate that. So I think that was the other thing. It's just extreme politeness. You're not sure what people are really thinking about you. So it's a bit unnerving, I think.
Yeah, because, and then the next thing, because my friend told me about an experience that her co-worker had. Next thing, she just saw a letter from HR saying, oh, you've been sacked.
Yeah,
and she was like, this manager is she's always smiling, she's always laughing with me. What happened? And they were like,
after they do that, they continue to smile at you. It's, so you're like, didn't you just try to ruin my life? So it's a bit...
So, I know it's a bit weird. Yeah.
So, I think that's... It's very different if you're Nigerian, because obviously, you know, if your boss is annoyed at you, they'll shout.
They will shout. That's the thing, like, they will shout.
And it's not nice, but at least you know where you are.
Exactly. So you know that, okay, with Mrs. XYZ, we need to... we're not friends. So
Exactly.
we need to know what we're doing, okay?
Yeah.
Maybe we just pretend, do our work, and that's fine. But when John is always smiling, oh, how's your weekend?
Yes.
Yeah. And then and then they go and send an email behind you saying, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. She did this, she
Yeah,
sent
it's-
that. You're like, wow, John, we just had lunch together. We just had coffee. Why? Like, why?
Why couldn't you say this
Why
over
couldn't
lunch?
you tell me? Yeah, they're very indirect, absolutely. Like even in emails, oh,
Yeah.
could you please, do you have some time? Of course I have time. You're my boss. Like, why am I here? I have time. This is why I'm here.
My boss would say, "Do you want to do this?" I'm like,
Like, no,
I
I don't want
both
to.
know I have no
actually don't want
options.
to, but exactly, I have no choice, you know. But yeah, okay, so are there any final last words, any words of encouragement that you would like to give someone who is looking up to you and thinking, I want to toe that path, a similar path as you? So if you have
Look up to
any
Jesus.
last few words. You said what?
Look up to Jesus.
Yeah, one, look up to Jesus.
No, honestly, I think the most honest thing I can say is brace yourself. Because the rejections, the ghosting, the unfortunately, it can get, it builds up and it takes a toll. So one is brace yourself. Like, and it's not really a reflection, on you. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It doesn't mean you're not smart. But one, it's a tough economy. Everyone's going through it. So it's not you sometimes, unless it's you, in which case, rework your CV or something. But many times it's really not about that. And I think recruiters they can be really helpful. Reach out to people, reach out to recruiters, speak to people. Don't just rely on, doing these applications yourself. I think something I did that's worked out a few times was I would not just go on, so you know how some of these recruitment agencies, like maybe Michael Page, for example, you could go in, log in, upload your CV. So what I would try to do is to actually go to their teams, find people who are working on maybe in-house job listings, things like that, and email them directly. Tell them, this is where I am, this is what's going on, what I'd like to catch up, see what you have. I think at one point during my master's, I emailed someone. I was looking for a part-time role, and she was like, oh, we don't have anything right now. When I finished my course, I emailed her again, and it was like, here's my life updates. I'm done now. So whereas I was looking for part-time roles before because of visa restrictions, I'm now open to full-time roles. And that was actually how I got my first role outside of school. So reach out to people. It's not relying on just, I think it's, if you're able to make a connection with someone, an individual, it becomes kind of easier to get what you want. But if you're relying solely on an application, they don't really get a sense of who you are, even when you try to make it personal. But reach out to recruiters, reach out to people in the organizations you want to work for, reach out to people who've done things. Reach out to former classmates. Like, people are honestly a huge asset, and I say this as someone who can be very shy. You can't run away from reaching out to people and speaking to people. And it's those experiences that sometimes lead you to where you want to go. So yeah, talk to people and just keep going.
Thank you so much. Yes. This has been filled with so much value, so many nuggets. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being my guest.
And thank you for having me.
Yes, so we might call you again. No, I'm just joking. I'm joking.
I mean, if you want to, that's fine.
Yeah, but I'm sure some people will be in your DMs saying, oh, please help me with visa sponsorship. Please, guys, she does not work at the UK embassy. Please Just try not to bug her with too many questions. But yeah, I'll link your social media handles below, and LinkedIn,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
and LinkedIn. So yeah, this has been very delightful. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you
Thank
so much for
you.
having me.
Bye.
Bye.